The faint click of the lock barely registered over the rhythmic whir of the ceiling fan. 3:17 a.m. Right on schedule for a late shift at the bakery. Skylar had started picking up extra hours a few months ago, claiming they needed to save for a down payment on a house. I supported her ambition, though the silence in our bed was becoming a constant companion. I'd noticed the changes subtly at first. New perfume, a lingering scent of expensive cologne that I knew wasn't mine. Secretive phone calls whispered in hushed tones on the back porch. The way her smile seemed different, less genuine. It gnawed at me, this creeping unease, until one night, sleep evaded me entirely. I drove past the bakery at 2 a.m. Dark, empty, my gut clenched. Tonight, I lay feigning sleep, the tension in my body coiled tight as a spring. Skylar slipped in beside me, the familiar rustle of her clothes followed by a soft sigh. She smelled faintly of cigarettes, a habit she'd quit years ago. And that cologne, it was stronger now. I waited until her breathing deepened, then leaned close and whispered in her ear, "He uses sandalwood, doesn't he?" Her body stiffened, a violent jerk followed by a choked gasp. She bolted upright, eyes wide with terror, staring at me as if I were a ghost. "Elias, you were awake." The mask of innocence crumbled. "Skylar," I said, my voice dangerously low, "who is he?" Tears welled in her eyes. Lies spilled from her lips, clumsy and unconvincing. "A co-worker, just a friend." Nothing happened, but the guilt radiating from her was palpable. "Don't insult me," I said, getting out of bed and turning on the lamp. The harsh light illuminated the cracks in our carefully constructed life. "I know you're lying. I deserve the truth." The truth, when it finally came, was a jagged shard of betrayal. His name was Ethan. He managed the bakery. It had started innocently, late-night conversations over closing duties, then stolen kisses in the storeroom, escalating to clandestine meetings in cheap motels. Each word was a hammer blow to my heart. I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I felt a chilling calmness descend. "Pack your things," I said, my voice hollow. "Leave." The next few weeks were a blur. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly amicable. Skylar seemed relieved, almost eager, to sign the papers. I kept the house, the memories clinging to its walls like cobwebs. I threw myself into work, the distraction a welcome anesthetic. But the wound festered. I couldn't shake the image of them together, their stolen moments, their laughter. I needed closure, not for her, but for me. I started subtly, leaving early for work, accidentally, bumping into Ethan outside the bakery, exchanging a few forced pleasantries. I learned his routine, his habits. He lived in a small apartment above a laundromat, drove a beat-up Honda Civic, frequented a dive bar on Thursday nights. Then, I escalated. I sent anonymous texts to Skylar, cryptic messages hinting at Ethan's infidelity, planting seeds of doubt in her newfound paradise. I knew it was cruel, but the bitterness in my heart was a potent fuel. The climax came on a Thursday night. I followed Ethan to the bar, watched him nurse a beer, his phone constantly buzzing with Skylar's increasingly frantic texts. He looked agitated, the smug confidence he'd worn around the bakery replaced by a nervous tick in his eye. I walked in, sat down beside him. He jumped, spilling his beer. "Elias, what are you doing here?" I smiled, a slow, predatory grin. "Ethan," I said, my voice laced with ice, "let's talk about Skylar." I laid it all out, the anonymous texts, the fabricated evidence I'd planted, the carefully constructed web of lies designed to unravel their fragile affair. His face drained of color, his eyes darting around the bar, searching for an escape. She's crazy," he stammered. "She's been harassing me." "Oh, I know," I said, leaning closer, my voice a low growl. "And she's going to get crazier." I left him there, a broken man, drowning in the wreckage of his lies. The next day, I drove past the bakery. A "Help Wanted" sign hung in the window. Tyler's car was gone. I felt a flicker of satisfaction, a fleeting sense of victory. But it was hollow. The revenge, the carefully orchestrated downfall of their affair, hadn't filled the void in my heart. It had only widened it. I drove home, the silence in the car deafening. The house felt emptier than ever. The ghost of Skylar's laughter echoed in the hallway, a haunting reminder of what we'd lost. I realized then that true revenge wasn't destroying them. It was rebuilding myself. It was moving on, finding peace, and leaving the ghosts of the past behind. The healing process would be long and arduous. But as I stood in the empty house, the setting sun casting long shadows across the floor, I knew I was finally free. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was manageable. I had survived the storm. And in the quiet aftermath, I found a glimmer of hope, a fragile promise of a new beginning.